Welcome back to the Tropic Wonder podcast. Today we're just going to dive right in. Maybe you guys have heard or seen, but Russell Brand has recently been accused of some pretty serious sexual assault allegations. And I don't know about you, I definitely have my own thoughts and opinions about this. I personally have always really liked Russell Brand, especially, obviously I've seen his movies, Get Him to the Greek and stuff like that, where he has openly talked about playing a very watered down version of himself, and he's expressed his distaste for Hollywood, and he's kind of divorced himself from the Hollywood scene. And I follow his podcast on YouTube. I also follow him on Instagram, where he does a lot of very, very thought-provoking work. They cover a lot of humanitarian topics. You know, he's very vocal about being anti-big pharma. He's been very vocal about holistic health and alternative medicine, and very vocal about, how basically the media machine and the political authorities around the world are kind of working to enslave humanity. And he's been very open about talking about breaking free from the matrix. And it seems to me, I'm an intuitive empath, it seems to me that he has always been on the force for awakening humanity and freeing them from this illusion of the matrix that we are all stuck in, plugged into, just slave away, consume, go to work, make more money, get in more debt, borrow some more money, give your paycheck away to taxes. I mean, Russell Brand has always kind of been a force for the opposite of that. And I'll play some clips in a little bit here. The one that I think really did Russell in. It's really interesting. There's so many different facets to this, I think, that are worth discussing and pondering. And I always encourage everybody to keep an open mind. You need to be a critical thinker. There are a lot of forces in this universe that are malevolent. I don't believe that we should just blindly accept whatever we're being fed as truth, especially when they try and, shove it down our throats. Always question everything. I never want to teach someone what to think. Like, I have a lot of little humans in my life. I have 11 nieces and nephews. I never want to tell people what to think, but I want to teach them how to think. Make sure that you are using all of your critical thinking skills to really break apart and digest emotion without emotion, the facts that you are given. I think too often in this society, we live in such an outrage culture right now where everybody's encouraged to just have this like impulse reaction to any information that they're being fed. And this is a huge problem for men and women. When you are unable to control your emotions, you are allowing essentially what boils down to fear to dictate your life, to dictate your behavior. So it's my belief that all men and women need to learn how to control their emotions and suppress that fight or flight response in order to have, an articulate and informed opinion about things. So you need to become more stoic in order to use your intelligence. I think we're seeing such a wild time in culture where people are like, animals that broke free from the zoo, and they're just behaving like wild heathens and not really using their higher intelligence and their intuition and logic and reason and fact to govern their decisions or their opinions. They're just completely acting off of impulse. And those are dangerous people. Like that creates a dangerous society. That creates looting and rioting and this hyper uneducated, uninformed populace who will have no accountability to themselves, and they act off of gut emotion, their gut response. That's when you get dangerous people. That's what you get, unhinged people who engage in school shootings, and that's when you get rapists and all of this criminal behavior when people aren't able to govern themselves. The news and media tend to be a form of distraction. Whenever they're dangling some story in front of your face, it's like them dangling a carrot. They want you to focus on this. It's usually then that they are committing some sort of atrocity, behind closed doors, behind the scenes. It's like when they're walking out the back door of the bank with a sack full of cash, they're like, look at this shiny object, focus on this. Don't look at the man that's robbing you blind. I've just noticed that whatever they want you to pay attention to, the big blinking neon light is usually a distraction from what's really going on. Or in this case, which is what could be, And I've seen many other examples of this. We've seen Trump be accused of, the Stormy Daniels thing, which is like endlessly debunked, the Russian collusion hoax. We've seen other versions of the same story coming out in the media where they accuse somebody of something when they stop towing the party line, when they speak out, when they start saying things that they don't want you to say. They will come out with some big blinking neon light of a story and try to distract you from what's really going on. So I remember seeing this video a while back of Russell Brand going on the Bill Maher show. And I've always liked Bill Maher. I think it's funny now, given how far into delusion, into dissent our country has, sort of fallen into. I think it's funny now. Most recently, Bill Maher, who has been a lifelong Democrat liberal, has actually been called a right-wing extremist, which is hilarious that they've moved the party line that far into leftism that now anyone who is like a moderate or even an extreme liberal, classical liberal, is now considered a right-wing extremist. It's just like a blanket term that they throw out at anybody who has a dissenting opinion. It's like they use that interchangeably with fascist, racist, Nazi, transphobe, homophobe, xenophobe, Islamophobe, all the phobes. Like, I've been called a right-wing extremist, which is just so funny to me. Like, I've never had a political affiliation other than maybe libertarian, because I've always been fiscally conservative, socially liberal, like more just go away. I don't care what you're doing. As long as you're not hurting me or yourself or anybody else, then great, go do whatever fuckery you deem, best in your interest, in your best interest. And we've drifted so far from that in our society. It's insane. But so Russell Brand went on Bill Maher, and when I saw this, I knew that there was going to be backlash. He went on, and he's always been pretty vocal in the past few years, at least, definitely during, the past 3 years. Anti-Big Pharma. He's been very vocal about anti-jab, very vocal about the lockdowns and the damage they've done to small businesses. He's always been an advocate for people really using their intuition and their logic to think for themselves. So I'm going to play that clip, and I really think that this was the nail in Russell Brand's coffin. And everybody who watches him, they're commenting, they're like, watch out, Russell, like they're going to be coming for you. And they weren't wrong. Here we go. So here's that clip.
Created at least 40 new big pharma billionaires. Pharmaceutical corporations like Moderna and Pfizer made $1,000 of profit every second from the company. More than two-thirds of Congress received campaign funding from pharmaceutical companies in the 2020 election. Pfizer chairman Albert Bourla told Time magazine in July 2020 that his company was developing a for the good of humanity, not for money. And of course, Pfizer made $100 billion in profit in 2022. And may I just mention, finally, and this is also a fact, that you, the American public, funded the development of that. The German public funded the BioNTech. When it came to the profits, they took the profits. When it came to the funding, you paid for the funding. All I'm querying is this.
Yes.
Is if you have an economic system in which pharmaceutical companies benefit hugely from medical emergencies, where a military-industrial complex benefits from war, where energy companies benefit from energy crises, you are going to generate states of perpetual crisis, where the interests of ordinary people separate from the interests of the elite.
I mean, you can see even Bill Maher was like, dude, kill his mind. Like, shut up, dude. We're not supposed to say that out loud. Like, it's true. Everybody knows that, but we're not supposed to say that. And even Bill Maher has been very vocal about anti-woke. For even Bill Maher, that was too far. And he was like, dude, shut up. Like, you're going to get us canceled or worse. So I think anytime somebody dare to break out and stop participating in this charade that they want you to, project to the public, like the Hollywood and the major mainstream media corporations, and which benefit all the big banks. I mean, all the mainstream newspapers, TV stations, all the media outlets are owned by the same 6 companies. Think about that. Around the world, the entire world, 6 corporations control you. And what you think, what you hear, what you read, and what you consume, your content. Think about that. They want to keep you sheep. They want to keep you weak. So anytime somebody dares to go against that party line, they come after you. There's not, it's not long before some evidence supposedly is drudged up. It's essentially just a hit piece will come out about that person. And once something like this comes out about somebody, there's really no recovery from that. You can damage somebody's life. You can ruin somebody's career, everything that a person has worked for, just by slinging some mud at someone. Like, these are serious allegations. Even if in a court of law, if he's able to beat these and has like irrefutable proof, evidence that those were not true, that stigma is still going to be attached to that man for the rest of his life. Is that fair? Now, it's interesting because I've seen this happen many times, like where I know, especially after in the wake of like the Me Too stuff, and I've always been adamantly against the believe all women bullshit. You should not believe all women. Yes, I care about survivors. Yes, that is horrible. Yes, I have personal experiences with this issue, so I feel that I can speak on this, and I'm also a woman. You shouldn't blindly believe anybody about anything. You should always question the facts. Yes, be sensitive. Yes, be gentle. You don't have to be cruel or, demolish somebody if they come forward. Yeah, don't victim shame, but also there needs to be proof. We need to prove this in a court of law beyond a shadow of a doubt. Innocent until proven guilty. There should be consequences. And we have seen throughout history, women lie. Women are capable of lying. I just saw the other day, this woman went viral for faking a CPS phone call, faking a report to CPS because she was pissed off that her boyfriend cheated on her or broke up with her or whatever. So he was a father of 2 young children. She doctored photographs of these kids and gave them bruises and all kinds of stuff and phoned CPS and made up these elaborate lies. I watched her on a podcast. If I can find the clip, I'll put it in the edit. She faked this entire elaborate story about how this father was abusive to his 2 children and then was laughing about it. She was so proud of herself. She was so pleased with herself. Not only did she screw over this man for the rest of his life, the kids are still involved with the foster system. She was bragging on this podcast.
On this one, I called child services on my ex because he pissed me off. And then I was like, yeah, I'm done with this person, whatever. Like, cheater, fucking piece of shit, lies about dumb shit. He had kids. I called child services on his ass and I fabricated everything and said certain things, and they went to the door and there was a whole process. I don't even know if the children's aid worker still visits them, but she probably does, because what I sent, the way I AI'd that shit, real AI shit, fake bruises type shit.
You put 2 innocent young lives into CPS, into the foster system. And that is something that I have researched extensively. CPS, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole here, but if you guys want to dig into that, that is a never ending rabbit hole of disgust. You think Jeff Epstein's bad? He was a pawn. Okay. Look into this Child Protective Services, research the Hampstead children. It's absolutely disgusting and heartbreaking. Don't watch it if you don't have a strong stomach, but I'm not saying that's the case here, but now these children are involved in the foster system, possibly for the rest of their childhood. So that is something all because of one careless woman, one ignorant, dumb bitch, all because of her lie to get back and get revenge on her boyfriend. She's decimated these poor, beautiful souls' lives. 3 people's lives completely ruined, and she was proud of herself. So women lie. I don't think we should just blindly believe all women. Look at Emmett Till. There have been so many cases throughout history where the woman did lie. And this is not to discount or, discredit the women that are telling the truth, but we need to have a system where we weed out the liars from the people who are telling the truth. There needs to be due process here. Here is what Russell Brand had to say.
Now, this isn't the usual type of video we make on this channel where we critique, attack, and undermine the news in all its corruption, because in this story, I am the news. I've received two extremely disturbing letters, or a letter and an email, one from a mainstream media TV company, one from a newspaper, listing a litany of extremely egregious and aggressive attacks, as well as some pretty stupid stuff like my community festival should be stopped, that I shouldn't be able to attack mainstream media narratives on this channel. But amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. These allegations pertain to the time when I was working in the mainstream, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies, and as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent. And I'm being transparent about it now as well. And to see that transparency metastasized into something criminal that I absolutely deny makes me question, is there another agenda at play? Particularly when we've seen coordinated media attacks before, like with Joe Rogan when he dared to take a medicine that the mainstream media didn't approve of. And we saw a spate of headlines from media outlets across the world using the same language. I'm aware that you guys have been saying in the comments for a while, watch out, Russell, they're coming for you, you're getting too close to the truth. Russell Brand did not kill himself. I know that a year ago there was a spate of articles, Russell Brand's a conspiracy theorist, Russell Brand's right wing. I'm aware of news media making phone calls, sending letters to people I know for ages and ages. It's been clear to me, or at least it feels to me, like there's a serious and concerted agenda to control these kind of spaces and these kind of voices. And I mean my voice along with your voice. I don't mind them using my books and my stand-up to talk about my promiscuous consensual conduct in the past. What I seriously refute are these very, very serious criminal allegations. Also, it's worth mentioning that there are witnesses whose evidence directly contradicts the narratives that these two mainstream media outlets are trying to construct, apparently in what seems to me to be a coordinated attack. Now, I don't want to get into this any further because of the serious nature of the allegations, but I feel like I'm being attacked, and plainly they are working very closely together. We are obviously going to look into this matter because it's very, very serious. In the meantime, I want you to stay close, stay awake, but more important than any of that, if you can, please stay free.
Okay, so this is obviously something that he takes very seriously, naturally so. And like I said, I have watched him for years. I mean, and my intuitive take on it is he's always been somebody who genuinely wants to wake up the masses and awaken them to what's going on behind the scenes, behind the veil, wake people up from the matrix. It's really interesting because, of course, rape does happen. Of course, crimes happen. I'm not saying that it's not plausible. It's not possible. But from my own observation, this is just Adrian, my take on it, me looking at it. What I've noticed reading about this, in any rape case or assault case that I've read about or abuse case, there are two types of people who commit these crimes. Just stupid, knuckle dragging, slide off your dinosaur, cavemen who are just out of control of their own emotions and they're overcome. Nobody has taught them how to control their emotions, which becomes toxic masculinity. That is toxic masculinity. That is when you get a dangerous, violent man. A man who is not taught how to harness and how to control and wield his personal power. There's so much beauty and power in the masculine energy. It is gorgeous when it is controlled, when it is learned, when you learn how to cultivate that masculinity. That is what we need to be teaching our boys and our young men. When that goes unchecked for so long, that is when you get unhinged people who fly off the handle in an aggressive manner. That's when you get rapists. That's when you get, school shooters. That's when you get all of these violent, dangerous men who are unable to control themselves. That's toxic masculinity. True masculinity, it's beautiful. They're protectors. They have loyalty. They have honor. They have integrity. That is a true masculine man. We need to teach our young men these principles and these virtues in order to help them grow into the greatest versions of themselves. But what I've noticed is there's two types of men who commit assault. It's the first, knuckle dragger, right? Just stupid beast, just an unhinged primordial beast acting off pure emotion, who has no sense of governing oneself. And then there's the other side. There's the Jeff Epstein side, right? There's the psychopath, the person who has no emotion. So they don't feel remorse. They don't feel guilt. They don't feel any sort of shame or anything afterward. They only know that it's like a soulless shell walking around, or maybe even not soulless, maybe just not their soul, maybe possessed, who knows? So there's a lot of speculation. I've always wondered if, psychopaths were actually just possessed people. I mean, if I was a demon, that's probably exactly what I would do, possess a highly influential person and then commit evil acts, right? So either one, Russell Brand is clearly a highly intelligent human being. He's got an extremely high IQ. He's very well versed. He's very articulate, right? So that rules out the stupid knuckle dragging Cro-Magnon man, right? So then we've got, okay, well, maybe he's a psychopath. Could be. He's brilliant. He would be very strategic. He would be able to pull something like that off. But let's analyze this deeper. Psychopaths would never become addicts. Psychopaths are not typically addicts. Russell Brand was a madman. He was a wild man. He's famous for talking about, his drug history, and he's always been very transparent about his sexuality and his wild heyday. He was always very open and honest, even when he was going through those phases of his life. Always been very transparent about his sobriety and his recovery. I'm not an addict or in recovery, but 10 years ago, I read his book, and it's brilliant. It's such a great book. It's so raw and honest and heartfelt. And that's the kind of authenticity that a psychopath lacks. So when you think of a psychopath, think of like Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. Like, they want to blend in society. They want to hide themselves and cloak themselves in a life of seemingly normal behavior. Look at Jeff Epstein. He rubbed elbows with all the stars. He wanted to be part of that elite society, but he wanted to fluidly and seamlessly blend in. He didn't make himself stand out in that authentic way like Russell Brand has. Another thing that eliminates Russell Brand, in my opinion, from, if we're doing like the movie theory of process of elimination, like, who's the killer, who's the suspect, there's no way that Russell Brand could fit that profile, that mental, intellectual profile, because he's also somewhat of a humanitarian. Like, I'm not talking about where a psychopath could easily just donate to a charity, right? Anyone could write a check and say, yeah, I support that. But Russell Brand actively spends his entire life either meditating or making podcasts about meditation and how to heal yourself. He dedicates his time and energy and has these really prolific insights that only somebody who's being 100% walking their talk could, and experience those things for themselves, could comment on. You can't fake that shit. You can't make that up. So that's just like my take on what I've noticed. So I think there's a lot to consider. Ultimately, what I suggest everybody do is use critical thinking skills. Do not believe what they tell you. You have to decide for yourself. Whenever I'm given information, I am willing to change my mind if I'm provided with enough information that it's compelling and there are facts that can be backed up and supported. If there are logic and facts, then you use a little bit of intuition to discern and form the whole picture. And all anybody can do right now is just really give their best educated guess, which is, again, if you think about it, these allegations have already tarnished a man's reputation and his career. So there's no taking that back. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. That's done. Another interesting facet to this case, and then I'm going to wrap this up. I don't want to talk your guys' ear off forever about this, but another interesting facet to this case is there was a Channel 4 documentary made about this, the next day. Interesting, swift. Way to conduct a thorough investigation there. So they reached out to a bunch of different people, women that he had sex with, and one of the women they reached out to, she made a video about this. I'll play that real quick.
I actually know who this is about, and I have the receipts. I was contacted in June by a journalist regarding a video I made about a certain celebrity and a weekend that we shared together. The video is kind of viral. It's on my page somewhere if you want to go see it. And that certain somebody was, as most of you will be aware, Mr. Brand. They weren't going to use my story because it didn't fit the narrative for their documentary, because he wasn't an to me. But here are some of the messages. Obviously, I will take out the person's name and stuff. We had a phone call. She contacted me for more information and I didn't contact her back because I kind of felt like it would be mean. Anyway, there you go. Put your bets on. It's a documentary about the one and only Mr. Russell Brand. And just a fun fact. Astrology-wise, the lunar nodes of destiny have shifted into Aries right on top of his Mars and Moon. Written in the stars, baby. Okay, bye.
Isn't that interesting how her story didn't align with the story that they wanted to project? It didn't fit the narrative that they wanted to spin, that Russell Brand is, in fact, this horrible perpetrator. He is this horrible, evil man who rapes women. Her story discredited that, so they didn't use it. I mean, if you're really a journalist, don't you just present all sides of the facts, all sides of the story and all the facts, and uncover every single detail, and then let the jury or the people decide what's true? That's not what's happening here. Not only did these newspapers write these stories and these allegations about him, but then they shielded it behind a paper plan or paper story, pay-per-click, however that works. They shielded it behind a money wall. So now you have to pay to see this story. So they're literally just doing this for profit. I always say follow the money trail and you'll find your answers, right? So here we have a young woman who's like, no, that didn't happen. And there's also going to be, I saw another video of a man, well, just because he didn't rape one woman doesn't mean he didn't rape another. Well, yes, that's true. That could be true. However, we need to have irrefutable proof. You need evidence. Innocent until proven guilty. So it just goes back to, what we've been saying all this time, and what I talk about a lot on this channel is that the media, whoever controls the media, controls the people. And if you have a populace that is focused on, they know more about the Kardashians than they do themselves, they don't even take time. Most people have no connection with themselves or with their higher power, with the collective unconscious, with God, what have you. Most people have no fucking clue who they are. So they don't have the ability to discern fact from fiction. They just believe what they're told. They just obey and do what they're told. Like when I was growing up in the 90s, it was fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. And now they're like, fuck you, you better do what they tell you. We have a society that is so separated from their true selves that they actually advocate for big corporations to make trillions of dollars off of literally poisoning you to death. There have been hundreds of thousands of deaths in the past 3 years. And the people who seem to want to break free from that and wake everybody up are the people that they point the finger at all of a sudden. And it's not long before some kind of, backstory gets dredged up and some sort of evidence turns up to completely discredit that person who goes against what the shadow authorities want you to believe. So stay vigilant, stay wonderful, stay full of wonder. Tropic Wonder podcast. Okay, so enough of the rabbit hole. I think you guys have enough information to at least be informed on the situation. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but for whatever it's worth, I really hope that truth is discovered one way or the other. All I care about is truth. I mean, truth is the most important thing. You can't have a functioning society without truth. And I think I'm really scared for our society because for the past 10, 20 years, we've seen society drifting further and further and further away from the truth. And everything that the left wants you to believe is nothing but, the inverse, the delusion, the lies, and the inverse reality. And I think that it's a scary time when not just dissenting opinion, but anybody who dares to just speak the truth and say that the sky is blue is considered a criminal, or will have allegations propped up against them that will ruin their lives or could destroy them completely. I always love what Trump said when he's like, in reality, they're not after me, they're after you. And that's the thing. So we're seeing these big figureheads taken out who have millions of dollars, who have access to powerful attorneys. What's it gonna be like when it happens to you or I? What's it gonna be like when, like for January 6th, where these people who were just going to, you know, the protest with their grandma or whatever to take pictures were let behind gates by the police and just walked in and have been sitting in, you know, freaking solitary confinement for the past year. Like what happens when it is the little person? It's once they get past all of these bigger people who are willing to stand up, there's nobody left to stand between us and them and tyranny and absolute power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So keep your eyes open. It'll be interesting to see how this turns out. All right. Cheers, guys.